I was 17 when I realized I wasn't a daughter anymore. I was the mop, the babysitter, the punching bag, the thing that soaked up all the mess and never complained because if I did, she'd say I was ungrateful. My dad left that year. Just packed up his tools, kissed my forehead like he still had the right, and vanished down the gravel driveway in his rusted-out pickup. He didn't even take his coffee mug. The morning he left, my little brother Noah was sitting at the kitchen table in Spider-Man pajamas, slurping cereal like it was any other Tuesday. He was 7, too young to realize that the quiet in the house wasn't peace, it was abandonment ringing in our ears. At first, my mom cried a lot. She'd sit on the porch smoking, mascara streaked down her cheeks, saying things like, "I gave that man the best years of my life." Then she just stopped crying altogether. Something inside her dried up, and whatever was left got sharp. I kept waiting for her to bounce back, to reclaim some version of the woman who used to hum while folding laundry or leave sticky notes in my lunchbox. Instead, she found a new hobby, resenting me. She blamed me for reminding her of him, for not getting a job fast enough, for using too much shampoo, for breathing wrong. And every time I brought up college or moving out, her eyes would narrow like I just spit in her coffee. "You're really gonna leave your own family to rot?" she'd hiss. "After everything I've done?" So I stopped bringing it up. I worked weekends at the diner and picked up night shifts at the gas station. I bought groceries, paid the electric bill once when she forgot, and made sure Noah always had clean clothes and a lunch in his backpack. I even learned how to cut his hair myself to save us the $12. He was still my baby brother. Still that gap-toothed kid who used to fall asleep on my shoulder during movie nights. But somewhere along the way, he started parroting her tone, calling me bossy when I reminded him to brush his teeth, rolling his eyes when I said no to video games on a school night. Little things, at first. Then it got uglier. One night, he snapped at me in front of her. "You're not my mom, so stop acting like it." Instead of correcting him, she just snorted and said, "Finally, someone said it." That one stung, but I swallowed it, like I always did. I was 22 when I realized I was running out of reasons to stay. Noah was 13 now. His voice cracked sometimes. He slammed doors when he didn't get his way. He'd started borrowing her words, like armor he didn't even understand. Still, I wanted to believe he'd remember what I'd done for him. That someday, it would count for something. His birthday was a Thursday. Mom didn't plan anything. Didn't even buy a card. Said she was too tired, and that birthdays were overrated anyway. So I picked up an extra shift the weekend before. I bought him a chocolate cake from the good bakery across town, the one with the fancy writing and edible glitter. I wrapped a pair of noise-canceling headphones I knew he'd been eyeing for months. Cooked his favorite dinner, mac and cheese with extra bacon. Lit the candles myself. He sat across from me, grinning with chocolate on his face, tearing into the gift with that same eager energy I'd seen every year since he could unwrap things. For a second, I let myself feel proud. Maybe this would be one of those turning point moments. But then, with his mouth still full of cake, he said it. "Mom says if you disappeared tomorrow, we'd finally be happy again." I didn't understand him at first. I just blinked. He looked at me like he hadn't said anything cruel at all, like he was just passing along the weather. "What?" I said, my voice thinner than I meant it to be. He shrugged. "She said it yesterday when you were at work." Then he laughed. "She said maybe then we could breathe again." I turned to my mom. She was already lighting a cigarette. She didn't even look at me. "Well," she muttered, exhaling smoke. "Someone had to say it." I didn't cry. Not then. Not in front of them. I just nodded. Stood up slowly, like my bones were made of glass. Collected the dishes. Put the cake in the fridge. Noah went to play video games. Mom flipped through the TV channels, muttering about how nothing good was ever on anymore. That night, while they were both asleep, I packed a single suitcase. Just essentials. A few clothes, my IDs, the crumpled envelope of cash I'd been squirreling away in the back of my sock drawer. I wrote a note and folded it into a plain white envelope. Left it on the kitchen counter, next to the half-eaten cake. Inside was $100 in cash, in case they needed it. A printed list of Noah's school contacts and his pediatrician's number. And one final line, handwritten. "I loved you more than you'll ever know. But love doesn't mean staying where you're not wanted." At 3:07 a.m., I closed the front door without making a sound. I walked down the driveway with my hoodie pulled up, heart thudding so loud I thought I might pass out. The air was cold. The sky was that weird, purplish-black it only turns before dawn. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew it had to be somewhere else. The Greyhound pulled up 5 minutes late. I got on. Chose a seat by the window. Didn't look back. I expected relief. I expected tears. What I didn't expect was the stillness. Like after years of holding my breath, I could finally exhale without fear of who'd blame me for it. The first 2 days were the quietest of my entire life. I stayed in a budget motel just outside the next town, the kind with flickering hallway lights and vending machines that only took quarters. It smelled faintly like mildew, but the door locked, and no one knew where I was. That was enough. I slept for 11 hours straight the first night. No one pounding on my door. No shouting. No creaking floorboards from mom stomping around like a storm cloud. Just silence. When I woke up, I stared at the ceiling for a long time, waiting for the guilt to crash over me like a wave. But it didn't come. It trickled in like a slow leak, sharp, confusing, and quieter than I expected. I walked to the nearby diner with $6 and ate a plate of dry toast and eggs. The waitress called me Han and filled my coffee 3 times even though I didn't ask. She didn't know me, didn't expect anything from me. That felt like a miracle. I applied for a job at the grocery store across the street using my real name. I didn't have a plan, just a list of places hiring, a prepaid phone, and a bus schedule. I kept moving forward, one awkward conversation at a time. By the end of the second day, I started to feel human again. That was when the text started. First, where the hell are you? No question mark. Just rage. Then, you're really doing this? To your own family? I didn't respond. I watched the screen until it dimmed and then turned the phone off entirely. The silence was better. But the next day, the number was different. Local area code, but not hers. I clicked the message open with a weird thump in my chest. Noah, I didn't mean it. Please come home. I stared at it for 10 minutes straight, fingers twitching above the keyboard, every word in my brain battling every scar on my heart. I didn't reply, but I cried. Not the dramatic, messy kind. Just these slow, heavy tears that slid down without permission. I wasn't crying because I regretted leaving. I was crying because it took me leaving for anyone to see me clearly at all. That night, I let myself remember what it had been like before everything cracked. Back when Noah was little and used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. When I'd draw dinosaurs for his lunchbox notes, and he'd save them like they were treasures. He used to call me sis, like it was a nickname, not a title. There was a time when I was his whole world. I don't know when that changed. Maybe it was the weight of the house pressing down on all of us. Maybe it was the venom mom fed him in small, invisible spoonfuls. Or maybe kids just mirror what they see. And all he ever saw was me being blamed, shushed, scolded, for things I didn't even do. The job at the grocery store came through fast. They needed someone for stocking nights. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid enough for a shared apartment I found on a corkboard in a laundromat. 2 girls my age, both waitresses, both kind of broken in that way people get when they've seen too much, too young. They didn't ask many questions. Just helped me move my suitcase in and offered to split pizza the first night. That felt more like family than anything I'd known in years. A week passed, then another. No more texts from Noah. No voicemails. I let myself pretend he'd moved on. That he was okay. That maybe he didn't miss me at all. But deep down, I hoped the silence meant he was thinking. Maybe even hurting a little. Because I needed him to understand what I had sacrificed. Not for revenge. Not to make them suffer. But because I couldn't keep letting them treat me like wallpaper. Something that's just there, unnoticed, until someone decides they hate the color. One afternoon, while shelving cans, I got a call from the apartment's shared landline. Hey, one of the girls said, covering the receiver. Letter for you came to the mailbox. Looks like a kid's handwriting. I rushed home after my shift, heart pounding. It was addressed to me. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting instantly. Noah. I sat on the floor in my room, legs crossed, breath shaky, and opened the envelope like it might explode. Inside was a single sheet of notebook paper, folded in half. The letter was short, messy, smudged in places. I miss you. Mom won't say it, but she does too. Everything's a mess without you. I think I thought you'd never actually leave. But now I get it. You weren't the problem. You were the glue. I didn't realize I was smiling and crying at the same time. It wasn't an apology. Not really. But it was something. A crack in the wall. I wrote back that night. One line. No return address. Glue doesn't hold when no one wants to stick around. And that was it. I folded it up. Mailed it to our old address. No stamp. Just enough for the universe to carry the message. I don't know if he ever got it. Maybe Mom tore it up. Maybe he read it and cried. Maybe he threw it away. But I said what I needed to say. Some truths don't need replies. They just need to be spoken. 2 months had passed since I walked out that night. I had my own key now. My own corner of a crappy but cozy apartment where nobody yelled at me for leaving dishes in the sink. My roommates weren't perfect. One of them always left hair in the shower drain, and the other played sad country songs at full volume when she got dumped. But we shared things. Groceries, laundry soap, jokes, and space. Emotional space. It's funny how the things you don't notice while you're surviving start to feel sacred when you're safe. I'd catch myself standing in the middle of the living room at night, hearing nothing but the hum of the fridge, and feel this ache in my chest that was something like peace. I didn't tell anyone my full story. I gave pieces of it when it felt right. My mom and I don't talk. My brother's still a kid. I left home a little too late. No one asked for more. No one needed an explanation to treat me like a human being. On weekends, I started walking to the library. They had this little community board near the front desk. Job listings, flyers for potlucks, even a sign-up sheet for night classes at the community college. I took a breath, grabbed one of the pamphlets, and stuffed it in my bag. A week later, I was sitting in a classroom that smelled like dry erase markers and carpet cleaner, taking my first Intro to Psych quiz. I didn't ace it, but I didn't quit either. The bus rides were long. My shifts were still late and sticky with sweat. But I was building something, even if it was out of scraps. I still thought about Noah every day. Some days, I hated him. For the way he looked at me that night. For the way he made my leaving feel inevitable. For how easily he let her turn me into the villain. But other days, I remembered the kid who used to chase fireflies with me barefoot in the yard. Who cried the first time he lost a tooth and needed me to hold his hand through it. I didn't know which version was real anymore. Maybe both. I didn't expect another letter. I hadn't sent one. But one afternoon, after work, my roommate handed me an envelope with no return name. I knew that crooked handwriting instantly. Inside was a single sheet again. Shorter this time. Messier, I found your note. Mom didn't throw it away. She didn't say anything. Just went quiet for like an hour. That never happens. I keep thinking about that night. I don't even remember why I said what I did. I think I just wanted to make her proud. Or maybe I was mad that you always seemed stronger than me. I know that's not fair. I was a dumb kid. I don't blame you for leaving. I just wish I'd said goodbye. I stared at it for a long time, trying to decide how I felt. Grief. That's what it was. Not over my choice, but over everything that had to die to make room for it. You don't get to keep the people who only love you when you're suffering. That's what I was starting to learn. The hard way. My roommates and I threw a tiny birthday party for one of them that weekend. It was silly. We didn't even have balloons. Just boxed wine and a store-brand cake. We lit a candle stuck in a Twinkie and danced around to a Bluetooth speaker like idiots. Someone asked me to take a picture, and I ended up in the middle of it, arms around two girls I hadn't even known 2 months ago, laughing harder than I had in years. Later, when I looked at that picture, I saw something I hadn't expected. My own smile, real, soft, like it belonged to someone free. It hit me then. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was becoming. I didn't know what Noah was going to grow into. If he'd be okay. If he'd find his own way out. But I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't be the rope that kept them afloat by drowning myself. That house, that life, had been a weight pressing down on my ribs for too long. And now, I could finally breathe. I started getting used to the sound of my own laughter. Not the kind that came out polite, or tired, or fake to keep someone else comfortable, but real, full-bodied, embarrassing kind of laughter. The kind I hadn't heard from myself since I was maybe 15. It was strange how quickly I adjusted to a life that wasn't soaked in tension. I could burn toast without getting screamed at. I could sleep in on Sundays. I could forget to text someone back and not feel like a criminal. I even stopped checking my phone obsessively. The silence from back home had become the new normal. Until, one Monday morning, my roommate handed me a new envelope. Different paper this time. Lined. Torn on one edge. Probably from a school notebook. It wasn't even sealed properly. I recognized the handwriting, Noah's again. But something about it looked different. Tighter. Like he'd pressed harder into the paper this time. There were no greetings. Just this. Everything's falling apart. Mom barely talks. She sleeps on the couch now. Keeps the curtains closed. Sometimes she leaves for hours and doesn't say where she's going. I tried to cook something last week and nearly set off the fire alarm. It's like the whole house gave up when you left. I didn't understand what you were doing for us. I thought you were bossy, always in the way. I didn't know you were the only one holding anything together. I see it now. I miss you. And I'm sorry. I sat down on my bed, letter trembling in my hands. The weight of it hit me in a place I hadn't touched in months. It was everything I had once begged for, screamed for, cried into my pillow for. But instead of relief, I just felt hollow. Because the damage had already been done. The pieces of me that held that family together were scattered, burned up. There was no going back and stapling myself to them again. You don't walk back into a house that taught you to hate yourself. You don't save people by becoming their punching bag again. But I didn't hate him. He was a kid. He mimicked what he saw. He believed what he was told. And then, slowly, he learned how wrong it all was. That's what I clung to. The learning. I didn't write him back. Not directly. But I asked a friend who worked at a local bookstore to help me build a little care package. A simple planner. A phone card, in case the house line ever got cut. A hoodie I used to wear that he always stole from my room on cold mornings. And a sticky note, folded inside the front cover of the planner. You have the strength to build your own life. I hope you use it. I believe in you. That was the most I could offer now. Not my presence. Not my sacrifice. But my hope. Because that's what I learned on the other side of escape. That sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for someone drowning isn't jumping in after them. It's showing them how to swim. Months went by. I finished my first semester at community college with a B average. Not bad for someone who used to grade math homework while cooking dinner and covering bruises made of words. I got promoted at the grocery store. Small raise. But it covered an actual mattress instead of that awful futon spring that had been digging into my spine since I moved in. My roommates and I hosted a Friendsgiving with canned cranberry sauce and overcooked stuffing. It was terrible. It was perfect. One afternoon, I was walking to class when a breeze hit me just right. Cool, but not bitter. And I stopped on the sidewalk, suddenly overwhelmed by the simplest realization. I wasn't afraid anymore. Of waking up. Of being wrong. Of never being enough. I was just here. Living. Laughing. Holding things in my hands that were mine. And I remembered that night at the table. The cake. Noah's words. My mother's cigarette. The sound of everything inside me cracking open. I remembered how I didn't cry. How I just nodded. How walking away from that moment was the beginning of becoming someone I could finally recognize in the mirror. Not glue. Not wallpaper. Not the maid or the fixer or the buffer between two broken people. Just me. Whole. A person. And that's when I knew I wasn't invisible anymore. Even if they never saw me again.